Guess let's move on to the next topic then.
All right, absolutely. And guys, go ahead and let us know in the comments what some of your favorite cameras are for sure. We'd love to hear about that.
Absolutely.
We're going to go from talking about a camera that was super simple to use to Sony's new, not so simple to use a7s III, and also much bigger. This thing is huge compared to that. But you know, this is another one of our cult cameras. The a7s series from Sony has garnered a cult following for a number of reasons, and the main reason is because of its ability to shoot in extreme low light conditions. Mainly people will say this camera is for videographers, and for sure the a7s III has been designed with videographers in mind, but you can also use it as a still shooter as well. And when Sony very first announced this camera, they said it had, you know, the same 12 megapixel sensor, was mainly for videography. I thought, well, you know, this is a sort of camera that could do really well for documentarians and photojournalists, especially in this day and age, who have to shoot video and stills as well. I think modern photojournalists have to do both, I would say now. And so I've been putting this to the test as a stills only camera, and I've been pretty surprised by it. To look at it, Chris, it looks just like the a7R4. That was the lens cap falling off. It looks just like the a7R4 and the A9 II. It feels really good in the hand, and you know, I've always been super critical of Sony cameras and their ergonomics, and this has been really the first one where I actually really enjoyed holding and using it. It just feels even a little bit better than the a7R4 does, and I thought that was pretty good. And for me, the inclusion of a flippy screen, I don't know if you can see that. Sony finally has a fully articulating screen on the camera, and yeah, it's great for videographers, but it's great for photographers as well. So I've really been enjoying using the flippy screen.
Do you feel that it feels like an actual camera? Like, to me, a lot of their cameras don't feel like actual cameras. They feel like computers that are designed to feel like a camera.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, this has got a lot better than the Sony cameras in the past, but yeah, it doesn't feel like, it's just a hunk of metal. It has almost like no soul, no character to it. It's just a square chunk with a grip on it.
It still feels like a good solid chunk with a grip on it, though. Like it
does.
But it just doesn't feel like a camera.
Yeah, it doesn't feel bad at all. It's just lacking that something that makes me get excited to want to pick it up and use it, like Olympus cameras do, or for me, like Pentax cameras do. I love the way Pentax cameras feel in the hands, you know. But it still feels really solid and robust. And going on from the solid and robustness, one thing I will say is this is the first Sony camera I've used where after a week I haven't seen a single speck of dust on the sensor.
Oh, that is great.
Yes, man. I took the lens off for the first time last night and was like, oh man, it's going to be caked. I just know it's going to be caked, and there's not a single speck on there. So I know Sony said they'd been working on their weather resistance and sealing, and I think they've finally taken some steps forward, man. It's great. It's excellent.
When you were using the A9 II, you got some dust on the sensor, right?
It was horrendous. I mean, and that's putting it lightly for the show. It was so bad, man. And I took so much care to try to not introduce dust and stuff, you know, and no matter what I'd done, it got caked after every time I used it.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. In fact, I took that camera down to a local motocross track, and after that shoot, the sensor was horrible.
Oh,
there was so much dust on it, yeah. But this one, it's not a single speck. So I think they finally improved their sealing.
Have you brought it out into the rain at all?
I did. Actually, one of the shoots I was on, we got hit with a downpour, and then we got hit with like light misty rain after that, and not a problem. Everything worked just fine.
Was the cover for the hot shoe in, or no?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the cover for the hot shoes in. I always leave that on, and I did know there was a chance of rain, so that's why I did leave that on. But yeah, man, not a single problem. It worked just fine.
Well, that's good to hear. It's reliable.
I think Sony finally have have been listening to the complaints about the weather seal, and they've made some big strides with this camera. So hopefully it will come into newer cameras down the line.
Well, talk to us about the autofocus. Like, I mean, this has a new processor too. Yeah, it does have a brand new processor. So how's that working with the
Yeah,
autofocus?
does have a new processor. I think there's 759 autofocus points, which is up by 200 over the A7R4. It has been excellent. I've had the only problem I've had with this has been in extreme low light situations, and I mean really extreme low light. And even then, it hunted a little bit. It wasn't too crazy, but you could definitely notice it. Otherwise, focusing has been fantastic. It tracks really well. No matter what autofocusing mode you're in, you can hit the shutter button, boom, you're instantly locked on. IAF is there for humans and for animals. It works just fine. I took some portraits of my wife in a really dark situation, and the AF and IAF locked on almost immediately. So it's working really good as well.
Let's talk a little bit about both tracking and low light autofocus, because that is something that, you know, this camera is really designed for.
Yeah.
Tracking, in terms of a comparison for what you have between Canon and Sony, which do you feel is better?
Between the newer Canon cameras, like the R6 and the,
Correct, yeah.
I would say they're about on par,
Oh,
honestly.
wow.
Yeah. The R6 still blows my mind when I pick it up and use it for tracking and for autofocus performance. Canon has really caught up with Sony. Yeah.
In low light as well too?
It's kind of hard to say. I think the A7S III, just with it being designed to work better in low light, is perhaps a bit better than the R6. Because I mean, even in almost virtual blackout conditions, this will hunt, but it will still find focus. And with the R6, when things got pretty dark, it would struggle quite badly.
Even with the L lenses. Oh, wow. Did you do any astro with this camera?
Yeah, I've had it for the week, and ever since I've had it, we've had cloudy skies, so I haven't had a chance to do any astro.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I was really wanting to, and that's why I wanted to get the 24 1.4 in as well, because that's the lens I wanted to use for astro. And I've had overcast skies, but just thinking about how well this camera's been performing at high ISOs, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that this camera would be incredible for astro work.
All right, let's take a look at your images, because I remember at a certain point, like in nuclear ISO areas,
Yeah,
it would just like look like a painting after a while,
yeah,
and it was really annoying. All right, can you see that, Brett?
yes, I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it looks like I was looking at these earlier. It looks like you went to go photograph a blacksmith.
Yeah, there's a local blacksmith who has just started up his own little forge, and he's specializing in making knives. So I asked if I could come along and document like a day in the life of a blacksmith, because that's exactly what I think this camera would be good for. And it performed flawlessly, man. I had absolutely no issues, and this is the day it actually downpoured on us. So all of these images are at 1600 ISO and above, just because it was actually really dark and overcast outside.
Mm.
And the camera had absolutely no issues capturing any of these images whatsoever.
What lens were you using?
This is the 24 to 70 f2.8 GM.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love photographing blacksmiths, man. They're so great.
Oh, me too. Yeah, it was fun to watch. It's the first time I've been to a smaller forge like this, and it was just really interesting to see the way he was working. He was super quick, so I had to be on my toes. But it was definitely a lot of fun.
What's it like documenting in the age of COVID when everyone has to wear a mask? Because I'm noticing this guy's not wearing a mask, and I know you're outside, but like,
Yep.
did you use the A7S in a different way that you would another camera in this case?
Wouldn't say I used it in a different way. I certainly tried to keep my distance as best I could, which is why I kept a 24 to 70 on there, just so I could get some distance between us. But I mean, I can't say I used the camera in any sort of different way.
Mm-hmm. These were cool. I really liked these.
Yeah, this is downtown Oklahoma City, and remember, guys, these are all captured with a 12 megapixel sensor. So, you know, and this is something I go into in the review just briefly. I think we've been brainwashed so much with the megapixel hype and people saying, oh, 12 megapixel, you can't capture good images with a 12 megapixel camera. Well, you absolutely can.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, you're not going to be printing massive prints with images from this camera, but for, you know, smaller prints and online use and magazine prints and newspapers, and they're just fine. They're absolutely perfectly fine. And one thing I've been really impressed with is the dynamic range in this camera. It's absolutely mind blowing. I think Sony rates it at 15 stops.
Yeah, that's it.
And yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun playing around with the raw files.
Yeah, I didn't get to play with the raw files, even though I have them in Capture One, but I remember really being impressed with how the dynamic range did for this. I was like, whoa, this is
Yeah,
actually pretty cool.
it's really quite impressive. I'll have to get you the original file for that last image because it's almost completely black. And that
This
was
one?
after
Wait, this
processing.
one?
The last one, that one right there. I've pulled out a ton of detail. The next one, this one right here, pulled out a ton of detail on those horses.
Whoa, we gotta zoom in. That noise is barely noticeable.
Yeah, it's incredible. And even at higher ISOs, yeah, the pictures get noisy, but it's a pleasant kind of noise. It's not jarring, if that makes sense. It's definitely it's definitely pleasing.
No, I agree with you. That's much better than the previous ones where again, it looked like a painting after a while.
Yeah, and that does happen as you go further and further down the ISO
Mm-hmm.
chart. I mean, there's a picture coming up here later on. I shot at 102,400, and it's definitely got that painterly effect.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the images were still usable.
And it looks, this is handheld for 1 second. So the image stabilization is very good.
I actually think, and I was talking to a good friend of mine about this, I actually think the image stabilization in this camera is better than previous cameras from Sony. I would always struggle hand holding the A7 III, and I would struggle hand holding the A7R4. I could get it eventually, but this was my first attempt. Nailed it. So, and there's another picture coming up later on as well, 1.6 seconds, not a problem at all. So it almost seems like the IBIS is working better in this camera.
Here you go, 1.6 seconds. And you, again, just to remind everyone, Brett held the R6 with the 15 to 35 Canon to 6 seconds and got no blur.
Right.
So he's very capable of doing this kind of stuff. But, you know, did you try going beyond 1.6 seconds?
I did, and I wasn't successful.
Mm.
So this is working better than it has done in the past, I think, but it's still behind some other cameras as well. But again, if you need to get down that low, then you can. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same problem with the A7C. Like, I was like, what? How can't I shoot below the second? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah,
Here's
it's really bizarre.
12,800.
Yep, and that's still nice and clean. There's a ton of detail in there still.
Mm-hmm.
Like
64.
I would have no problem. And I was just walking around for fun. The night I went downtown Oklahoma City, I was just walking around for fun, shooting at ISO 6400, and there's no problems whatsoever, man. It was absolutely just so nice to be able to shoot at whatever and just know you're going to get a usable image out of it.
Right, refresh my memory. Is ISO 64 a native ISO on the sensor or no?
That is extended.
Okay.
Yes. So this was ISO 64. This was a 10-second exposure, I think. But and I just wanted to take this picture just to show you that this camera is capable of generating really nice images.
Mm-hmm. It does say 10 seconds. This wasn't handheld, was it?
No, this one wasn't handheld, no.
Gotcha.
I'd had way too much coffee that evening to
do. This is more stuff at night.
Yeah, 6400. I've done a lot of 6400s. Like you could honestly, as a photojournalist or as a documentarian, you could grab this camera you could set your ISO limit to 25,600 and walk around and take pictures and just know that you would be just fine getting any image you wanted.
Mm-hmm. That's what it seems
It's that
like.
good.
That your wife?
That's my wife. Yeah. Yeah. And this was ISO 12,800. It was actually really pretty dark here. And this is where I was testing out the IAF and just locks on immediately, even in lower light, because we were kind of away in the shadows here. And it worked really well.
Yeah, no, it's doing it. I can see that.
Oh yeah.
How's at the higher ISOs, how does the color depth get? Is it still good and usable, or is it like absolute crap?
No, it's actually still usable. I was surprised. I would say above 25,600. In some situations, the colors can take on some odd characteristics, I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's still very, very usable. This is 102,400.
And what was the last one? This was, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So you went from 12,800 to 102,400 right here.
I mean, if you're a fan of the texture of football, this looks like the texture of football, but it's not too bad.
It's not terrible. And again,
Yeah.
we're talking nuclear ISO levels, and you're still getting an image that would be totally fine to use online or in print.
Did you make a print of this?
I didn't.
Okay.
I need to.
Yeah, send me the raw. I wanna do that.
Okay.
Because I'm
I can
very
definitely do
curious
that.
about like what kind of paper would probably go best with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking
Yeah.
at like the, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm looking at like the shadow detail over here, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
It's really not bad at all. Yeah, I was really impressed. And I didn't send you the file, Chris, but I actually took a why not picture at 406,000 or 409,000 ISO.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't expecting anything out of it at all. And it's actually, I was sitting in the passenger seat of the car and I was taking a picture of my wife driving. It was really dark. Got back home, looked at the image. I can still make out small details like stitching in the leather of the seats. I could still make out hair detail. I could still almost read like the warning sticker sign on the visor above the windshield at 406,000 ISO.
Jeez.
Yeah, and again, yes, it was really noisy. Couldn't really do much with the image other than share it online, but it was still being able to capture and render those small details.
Now, when you're saying noisy, do you mean it's color noise, or is it just like a really big grain?
Color noise.
Okay.
The grain isn't bad at all. It's really not. It's colors. Yep.
That's the worst kind of noise.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it looks good in black
absolutely.
and white, but that's it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, just the fact that I could even shoot at ISO 400,000 plus is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you and I have talked about this a while. I want to go back to the ease of use. What do you think of the new touchscreen menu?
It's got pros and cons, just like everything else in the world. So this is the new menu system, guys. I don't know if that's showing up or not.
Bring that back towards your face so it's a little bit more in focus. There you go.
Can you see that? Okay. So yeah, I can't see what's going on, but the menu is fully touchscreen compatible. I like it. I think the layout is much better than the previous system. I think it's a lot more logical. It's a lot more user friendly. The problem is this is one of the smallest touchscreen LCDs on a camera I have come across in quite some time. It's below 3 inches in size. And the way Sony has the menu system set up is when you touch an option, it opens up another page to the left, right hand side, left hand side. And so as you get deeper into the menu system, the options seem to get smaller and smaller, and it's harder to press. So it's a great implementation, but it needs a larger touchscreen for it to really be the most user-friendly out there. But the way the menu system is now laid out, it's really nice to navigate using the D-pad as well. So yeah, overall, I think it's a big improvement over the last menu system they had.
I agree with you, but I also still feel like you can use a combination of touch, but you do have to use the D-pad and the joystick still.
Yeah, and the more you deep dive into the menu system, you've got to use that D-pad, because if you have fat fingers like me, you just end up mushing everything on the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, if you eat a lot of like stuff with butter, the way I do, then like you're just gonna slip all over the screen.
there you go. But yeah, no, man, it's night and day compared to the last menu system. I think Sony's done a pretty good job with it.
How's the battery life translate?
Well, I've had it for a week and I've shot about 1,700 pictures in like single shot and on burst modes, and I haven't had to charge it yet. I think I'm still got like 20% left in the battery.
That's the best Sony battery I've ever heard of. Wow.
Yeah, it's been really good, really, really good. And it's just the Z battery, I think, the same as the A7R4,
Yeah, that's
I
correct.
believe.
And I mean, ever since they did the A9 original, that's the same battery that everyone's used.
Yeah, but yeah, it has been excellent. Now, I haven't been chimping a whole lot. I haven't been looking at the back screen a whole lot. I mean, that's just my personal shooting style. I don't look at my images a whole lot until I get home. So your mileage is going to vary. But yeah, I've over 1,700 shots and I've still got charge.
Jeez. Did it overheat
Yeah,
at all?
no, no, I haven't had any issues with overheating. Um, no, man, it's just been working great. One other thing I will mention as well is the EVF. This EVF is beautiful, absolutely mind blowing. They switched to a 9.44 million dot EVF on this thing, which is double the resolution of most other cameras out there. And you could almost be fooled into thinking it was an optical viewfinder. The only thing that gave it away from me really is in really low light situations, the EVF lags.
Mm.
Yeah, and that was even on the highest refresh. And in low light, it's really jerky.
Brett, say that one more time. Your audio cut out for a second.
I was just going to say that what really gave it away from not being an optical EVF is that in low light situations, really low light situations, the EVF becomes very laggy.
Yeah, no, that part I got. But
Yeah,
I guess another question that I have is, did you try it in exposure preview off mode? Like, how did it affect it then?
you know, I didn't try it in exposure preview off.
Okay. I was about to say,
Yeah,
because that's usually more of like an optical viewfinder experience in
yeah,
some ways.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, it was only in really virtually blackout conditions that it would do that.
Mm-hmm. Still pretty
Yeah,
good.
but no, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, work great.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna spoil this review for everyone. We will be I have to edit it. Overall though, like if you were to move to the Sony system, actually no, because I know you wouldn't buy this camera. Especially for the type of work that you do. You need more megapixels, knowing you. You need
Right.
something like
Yep.
A7 or A9 level.
Yep.
Um how hopeful does this make you for the future of Sony products?
Really hopeful. I think they've taken some big steps with this camera. First being build quality, weather sealing wise, is huge for me. Not having any dust on the sensor after a week of use has never happened to me with a Sony camera before. I love that they finally have the articulating screen. That I love using that as a photographer for high up and low down shots. The touchscreen menu is fantastic. Yeah, man, I think if they can bring over a lot of these features into cameras going forward, I think Sony's gonna be onto something.
I agree with you. I think the A7C, like this is a great first camera. You need to wait for the 2 for them to actually do this to that camera. The
Mm-hmm.
A7R5, I really hope has this, but I also really hope has those other features like multiple exposure mode and all those other things that I've been asking for a while.
Absolutely.
I also really hope they get bigger LCD screens. Like, I remember, what was it, the XT200 you were reviewing?
Yeah, that was a beautiful screen on that.
Yeah, it was all touchscreen on the back.
It's almost all touchscreen. Yeah, there's a 3.5-inch touchscreen on the back of that camera. And yeah, I mean, if you were to put that camera next to this, you would really see just how small this touchscreen is on the back of the A7S III.
Yeah, but I mean, if you had more real estate space, that screen would probably be a lot more usable.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the menus would be a breeze.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I wonder then what sort of they would sacrifice. I mean, maybe, when I look at one of those cameras, maybe the D-pad might become a little bit smaller. Maybe the
Yeah.
joystick would move a little bit. They'd have to smush some buttons more on the right-hand side, the top. I don't know.
Yeah, and they could definitely do that. And I mean, that was one of the things I really liked about this camera is most of the controls fall on the right-hand side, so you can use it one-handed for the most part. But if they wanted to make this a bigger screen, they definitely have to move some of these buttons to the top left, which would
Mm-hmm.
take away the ability to use one-handed most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or they find a way to move it to the area between the bottom of the viewfinder and the top of the screen, but then they would have to make the camera taller.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is already a pretty big camera for a Sony.
Bring it up again, like in your hand. Okay, so I'm just bring that back up again. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
So
good.
okay, so that's where your finger is right now, and that's where your thumb is.
Yeah.
Are your
Yep.
pinkies hanging off at all, or is your pinky?
No, pinky is on the grip, firmly on the grip. I actually think this is maybe just a tad bit wider than the A7R4 because I know they've implemented a new heatsink in this camera. So the camera does feel like it's deeper, thicker than A7R4. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, it feels nice in the hand.
No, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, stay tuned for Brett's full review. We'll be publishing that. I'll probably, I don't know, if there's enough requests or something like that, I might even move around the schedule and like publish it this week and excuse me, wait till our copy editor complains like, man, everything was all set. And I'm like, oh man, sorry. Either way, it doesn't look like we have any questions. Mike was saying, I want the Leica SL2 even though I can't afford it. The Leica SL2 is a nice camera. I feel like there are things that they really could improve on it though. Actually, there are a number of things. Like I haven't held one in a little while, but the autofocus is totally one thing. Let's check Facebook really quickly. John was saying the brass construction I meant, but that's the only thing that I see there. I don't really see anything else from him. So yeah. Okay, then in that case, I think that we're all set with the show then, right, Brett?
I think so. Yeah. Other than just saying, hey, if you're interested in buying one of these, they're $3,500. So if you have a need for a camera that's great for video and decent for stills as well, yeah, you might want to consider it.
Yeah. That's almost R5 price. R5 is like 3,800.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but
It's getting up there.
yeah, you're getting less megapixels, and you're also you're also not getting 8K video. But you're
Right.
getting much cleaner high ISO output, no problems at all with heat,
Right.
and faster autofocus slightly, right?
Yeah, and you'll have the faster memory card CF Express A
Oh,
is
jeez.
what this camera uses. Yeah,
Well, it uses it.
another standard.
Yeah, it uses that, but it also uses SD, right? It's the same port.
Yeah, it uses UHS-2 and CF Express A. It's actually really interesting. I'd hold it up to the camera, but you wouldn't be able to see the detail in there. The memory card slot is just almost like twice as thick.
Yeah.
But you can fit four memory cards in this camera.
Hold on. Janice is saying, what are your one of your interesting shows? Thanks. I meant to say one of your most interesting shows. Oh, cool. Thanks,
Good.
Janice. Really appreciate that. Checking again Facebook one more time. It doesn't look like, let me refresh. Let me see. 2 comments. That one was cool. That was one cool thing about the Pentax MX1. Oh, he's talking about when that was the camera with brass built into it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you. We're going to cut the Facebook feed here, and then we're going to open it up to everyone here on Zoom to talk to us. And we'll be back here next week. So let us know what you think, if you want it on Facebook, if you want it on YouTube, if you're cool here on Zoom. Yeah, we'd love to know in the comments or like on the site, or, shoot us an email, editors@thephoblographer.com. Looking forward to it. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
So cutting the Facebook stream and